How you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good. Did you try the mustard?
It didn't really do anything.
Didn't?
No, I was kind of bummed. You made it sound so good.
Well,
But maybe it doesn't work out.
works good for the cramps, that's all I can say.
All right, welcome to our 6th seminar on Tranquility Meditation. Today we'll continue with the psychoanalytic interpretation of stuff, because we got cut off there because of the good discussion that we were having. And then, we'll move on into the behavioral interpretations of Tranquility Meditation. We'll take a look at the work of John Pavlov, B.F. Skinner, G.I. Gurdjieff, and P.V. Ouspensky. And we'll take a look at classical and operant conditioning models. Okay? And before we do anything else, though, we want to actually get some practice in. So we'll move ahead to the equanimity meditation, and I'll show you how that works. Before we get there, though, is there anybody who needs to have a review about how to get to the website? No? Okay, good. We'll just go ahead and do that. We're back on our normal weekly schedule, at least until next week. So next Tuesday we'll be meeting again, and then there'll be a week off, and then we'll have the final seminar a week later. Okay? So the next hiatus is November 6th. We'll meet next Tuesday, have the following Tuesday off, and then meet for the final seminar on October 13th. November 13th. Okay? All right, and then we'll get back to this in just a little while.
Wait, I can't read that fast.
Yeah, that is pretty fast. There we go. Okay. There are a number of good books out there that provide different methods of, different kinds of meditation practices. This is a part of a series coming out of Tibet, well, coming out of India. But it's written by a Tibetan geisha, who is a teacher, one of their professors would have been a professor at the university in Tibet. And he has reconstructed the classical teachings and put them into modern form. So it's very systematic, very straightforward, very complete, basically, as far as the ancient teachings go. And even though there are certain elements that are unique to the Tibetan interpretation of Buddhism, most of it is just classical, coming right directly from the original Buddhist doctrine. This particular book, Geshe Kelsang Gyatso is the author's name. This is a book called Joyful Path of Good Fortune, The Complete Guide to the Buddhist Path to Enlightenment, 2nd edition. This is 1995. And we'll take a look at the equanimity practice. Now, remember that part of what is going on here in the Buddhist tradition is that one of the skills you need to have is the ability to have compassion, loving kindness for other humans and for other living creatures. Okay? The first of the Bodhisattva vows is, I vow to become enlightened for the sake of all living beings. Okay? Now, what that means is, I vow to achieve enlightenment, even though it is really hard to do, for the sake of an infinite number of beings, even though that's impossible. So they recognize within the context of the vow that this is a never-ending task. But this is one of the first groups of exercises, of meditation exercises that are directed specifically towards developing that attitude, which in Sanskrit was called bodhicitta, loving kindness, okay, compassion for everybody, the enlightened mind, that they're all, sort of the same concept. And it means to be able to ultimately, of course, to be able to transpose yourself into another person's shoes and literally experience the world as they might experience it. Exchanging self for others is the name of that particular exercise. This and the other one is the equalizing self with others, so that we're all sort of in this boat together, and none of us is superior to any other person as far as our ultimate perfection and our ultimate enlightenment are concerned. even if we have different roles or different stations in the world itself, you know, ontologically speaking, metaphysically speaking, we are all equal. So this is the first of those exercises. This is the very first one, and it is called developing equanimity. So it's a simple visualization exercise. We don't even need to have a very deep meditative state in order to perform this particular one. So we're going to visualize three groups. We're going to close our eyes and we're going to imagine that there are three groups of people. Okay, a group to our left, a group in front of us, and a group to our right. The first group is to the left of us, and it is people for whom we have strong attachment, people that we love, people that we care for, people in our families, friends, colleagues, whoever, that we really have strong attachments to. The second group is in front of us, and it's the people for whom we have neutral attachments, you know, colleagues and friends and other people that we know but don't have really strong attachments to. Okay? The third group is to the right of us, people for whom we have strong aversion. Okay? People whom we hate. All right? And they don't necessarily have to be, you know, people that we encounter every day. It could be people in, you know, in the larger world out there who are famous and have pissed us off. Okay? So, you know, anybody for whom we have a strong aversion will be included in this third group, which will be visualized as if they were here in front of us on the right-hand side. Okay? So that's the first part of the meditative exercise, is we have to be able to visualize fairly concretely and in fairly good detail these three groups of people. And we can narrow it down to one in each group, or as our meditation practice becomes stronger, we can, you know, expand it out to have large groups in all three sections. Okay, so just pick whatever is going to be easiest for you to do today. One or two or three in each group. Okay, or if you feel comfortable, have more. But the more people that you visualize, of course, the more complex the exercise becomes. Okay? So we're going to just sort of get that in the back of your mind right now, and we'll take the time to actually build a visualization. And then once we have these three groups in front of us, what we're going to do is we're going to begin to take a look at them one at a time and begin to equalize our response to all of them. So the people for whom we have strong attachment, we're going to try to neutralize that down, okay? And then we're going to, you know, take the middle group and just sort of use it as a measuring, a barometer. And then we're going to take the third group, which is the people that we really don't like, and try to do the same thing. Just reduce the emotional attachment to these two groups that have a high valence attached to it. Okay? Now, this is not to say that we're going to stop at that point. This is just the first step of a very long and complex series of meditations that will ultimately get us to the point where we have loving kindness and compassion for everybody. So in other words, ultimately what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking the second and third group and we're going to be, you know, giving them the same kind of loving feelings that we give to the first group. But before we can do that, we have to take control of our emotional responses, and we have to be able to neutralize all of these two poles. Okay? And that's the intention of this. That's what the equanimity is talking about. Just sort of equalizing everything out so that we're not being pulled and pushed and prodded and manipulated by you know, strong emotional responses to people in this case. Okay? So like I said, this isn't the end of the exercise. This is just the beginning, where we're taking control of our emotional responses. Because remember, the people for whom we have strong attachment, we're not going to, you know, come to just, you know, ultimately just have them mean nothing to us, because that's not the intent. What we have to do is we have to control our emotional responses. Yeah?
Would you repeat that again, what you just said about being manipulated?
Being manipulated by our emotional responses. Remember that if we have extreme emotional responses to people or to situations, those are very easily manipulated by advertisers and politicians and ministers and hypnotists and other people like that. Okay? They will use that knowledge in order to get us to do things that we would not normally want to do, because we're now emotionally invested in it, one way or the other. okay? And so the first objective is to just get this state of equanimity where we are in control of and recognize these emotional swings. And the way that we do that is by literally experiencing these extremes of emotion. Because when we visualize this first group, we will revivify those feelings of strong attachment and love and happiness and joy and all of that goes along with it. And then when we imagine these people, we'll revivify those feelings of hatred and anger and whatever else is there. Okay, so we'll now get a chance to literally see how just a visualization, just an imaginary representation of these groups will cause the avatar to have an emotional response.
You
Yeah.
have, when you're doing it, you have to have the same number of people in each group?
No. Just in order to make it simple at the beginning, start off with one or two, just a couple. Ones that really will have that emotional response attached to them. Okay? And so, again, this is an exercise in just recognizing emotional responses in the avatar and beginning to exercise some control over those emotional responses. Once we can do that, then we can move on to the next series of exercises, visualizations. Like I said, it's a long, fairly complex series. I can't remember how many there are. Let me go look here. Yeah, this is in the chapter called Developing Bodhicitta. So, the first set of exercises is called Training the Mind in the Sevenfold Cause and Effect. And then the second part is training the mind in equalizing and exchanging self with others. So the ultimate objective is the equalizing and exchanging. And the first series of exercises is the sevenfold causes. So there's going to be 7 exercises first and then the final 2. And this is the first of the exercises, developing equanimity. Okay? The Buddhists were system builders. They like to build very complex systems of things, behaviors and exercises and rituals and things like that. So this is one of the examples of that particular set of systems. Now, keep in mind, when we're speaking historically about this, the Buddha wrote nothing down. We have absolutely nothing from the Buddha, 0. And we don't get anything written down from the tradition until 3 centuries after he was dead. So what we are looking at is, a tradition that is founded upon things that we really don't know. What we know starts about 200 BCE and continues from that point forward. But the actual historical Buddha is lost in mystery and conjecture and all sorts of other things, and he himself never wrote anything down. Okay? So just keep that in mind. Same thing with Jesus, same thing with Socrates. All of these great leaders tend not to write anything down. They just want to go out and do it. So, okay, so have you got your basic groups? Okay, so just go ahead and close your eyes and imagine those groups. The first group is the one we're going to take a look at first. Take a look at those people for whom you have strong attachment. And just allow yourself to feel those feelings, to experience those feelings of strong attachment. There is absolutely nothing wrong with feelings of strong attachment. They are a natural event. They're a natural response of the avatar to real situations in the real world. And these people happen to be those people for whom you have strong attachment and feelings of love and affection. So just allow yourself to have those feelings. And they may be intense and they may be less intense, but you will get a feel for those feelings. Next, take a look at the third group, the group on the right, the group of people for whom you have strong aversion, feelings of anger or even, hatred and perhaps even violence towards. And again, these are natural, normal responses of the avatar to real circumstances in the real world. There's nothing inherently wrong with these emotions. So just go ahead and allow yourself to feel at whatever level of intensity you like those feelings of aversion. And now take a look at the second group, the group in the middle, the group for whom you have no feelings of either aversion or attachment. And notice how everything sort of calms itself down, and there's neither attachment nor aversion, and the organism itself, the avatar, is relatively calm. Now, in the next series of visualizations, you're going to take this feeling of equanimity, this feeling of calmness, and look at the first group, the group for whom you have strong attachment, and allow those feelings of attachment to sort of just filter themselves out and settle down to that feeling of equanimity, temporarily, just as an exercise, just to demonstrate to yourself that you can, in fact, have feelings of equanimity and calmness when contemplating those people whom you love. And now take that same feeling of equanimity and apply it to the third group, the people for whom you have strong aversion, and allow those feelings also to settle down, reduce themselves, calm themselves down, and allow that feeling of equanimity and calmness to remain while you contemplate that group of people. And just sort of continue moving back and forth between the two extremes and centering on the middle group as you need to. And just take a couple of minutes just to sort of get the feel for this particular exercise. Okay. So, go ahead and return to the level wakeful world here. And, any discussion or comments that you'd like to make about your experiences? Yeah.
Very hard.
Difficult. At the beginning.
Yeah, at the beginning.
Yeah,
The extremes.
Extremes, exactly.
To get into neutral,
Yep, very hard,
very hard.
very hard.
Once I got there, I was neat.
Mm-hmm. Mhm.
But, trying to detach.
Mm-hmm. It is very difficult. And there's a survival reason for that. Okay, that is genetically sort of encoded in the avatar itself, because the avatar needs to be able to recognize friends and family from foes, okay, and take a completely different response to those two groups of people.
Yeah, one of them I wanted to hug.
Right.
The warm.
Yeah.
The other one I wanted to run away from.
Right, exactly.
Or hit him.
Or do something, yeah. Yeah, and like I said, these are perfectly normal. These are real responses in the real world to real events and real people. But for the purposes of meditation, the consciousness which we are needs to be able to override these naturally occurring, almost genetically instinctive events in the avatar in order to be able to exert its own influence and its own will. Okay? Now, theoretically, there might be circumstances, where the avatar needs to run away. You're actually in physical danger from someone. Okay? And this wouldn't override that. That's not the
Well, I
intention.
visualize the people I had in it as
Yeah.
old hurts and,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. They're
Which
not extreme.
yeah,
to the
and
point
they're
that-
not, they're not life-threatening. Okay, so we're not attempting to override the actual instinctive responses of the avatar to the real world. We're attempting to get more and more control over the emotional responses and to recognize that we have that control. Yeah,
With the people that you love.
do you love? Uh-huh.
The one that came to my mind was my daughter, and
Yeah.
she's in a group home, and she's mentally handicapped.
Oh, yeah.
And what came to me as I was doing this is, in the past, what I've had to do is almost detach to be able to deal with the whole situation, and so that was not real hard, but sometimes I always interpreted that as being almost cruel or indifferent.
Yeah,
But it was a survival
Yeah.
tactic. And then, with the other, the only one I could think of was a roommate in college
uh-huh.
that, it was horrible. We just got so that we didn't even talk.
Yeah,
And that, she came to mind.
Yeah.
And it was amazing, and-
yep,
And since then, she found out about this daughter, which is funny,
yep,
this daughter, and had written to me, so she really isn't that, I don't really hate her,
mm-hmm.
but it was,
Mhm.
so that I didn't care if I ever saw her again after I
Right.
left,
Exactly.
So it was
Exactly.
really interesting how
Good.
that those thoughts come to you.
Yeah, good, yeah.
And also, I sort of brought Christianity into it
Mhm.
and religion because it says forgive,
Mhm.
your enemies.
Exactly.
Treat everybody.
Precisely, that is the Christian version of this exercise.
Right.
Yep.
That's what I,
Yep, and that's exactly right. Remember, all of these they're not just related, they're closely related. Everything comes from the same root, they're all directed towards the same goal, they're all using the same techniques. The language is a little different, and the descriptions are a little different, but everything is exactly the same, and it all comes from the same root source. So yeah, good point. This is right out of the New Testament, okay, and right out of this entire our entire Christian tradition in the same way. Okay, yeah. Anything else? Okay, so this is useful if you have a situation. I mean, practice it. This is not something that you need to practice, every day. This is just something you need to be familiar with so that you can use it when you need it. There may arise circumstances in the future when you need to have the ability to equalize things out here and return to the state of equanimity in the face of, especially intense dislike towards someone else. Okay, then you can use this technique in order to equalize things out and get, be able to stand your ground and do what you needed to do. Okay, and just keep in mind that these are the kinds of things that happen in the meditative traditions. It's not just the meditative absorptions, it's also these kinds of sort of cognitive things that are attempting to try to, to try to help us to understand what's going on here psychologically and to begin to take some measure of control over that. Okay, any other comments or questions? All right, so let's return, review of seminars 1 through 4. Is there anything here that you want to review? Or are we pretty good on all of this stuff here? Yeah.
Lon, I apologize for not being here before, but could you give a quick review, maybe?
Oh, sure, yeah. Yeah, the psychophysiological coherence model is a new model. It's based upon information that we began to get from the research in about 1985. So prior to 1985, there were sort of hints in the research, but not a really lot of good, solid evidence of this state of psychophysiological coherence. But from 1985 to the present, there's just tons of good research out there that has opened up this new insight into the way that the avatar functions and the way that this coherent state is the springboard for all of these mystical states that we've heard about from all of our religious training. So what happens is the three primary rhythms of the avatar itself, which would be the heart rate, the breathing rate, and the brainwave rate, are all interrelated, and they're driven by the breathing rate. So once the breath rate drops to 6 breaths a minute, which is 1 breath every 10 seconds, we start to get a synchronization effect. The brainwave pattern starts to drift towards an alpha state, it starts to slow down, and the heart rate starts to slow down towards 60 beats a minute or less. Now, when the breathing rate drops to 3 breaths a minute, which is 1 breath every 20 seconds, we get a very strong coherent synchronization of those 3 rhythms. The brain waves will drop down into a very stable alpha state. The heart rate will drop down into a very stable 60 beats or less per minute with high heart rate variability. Okay? That, in other words, it speeds up as you breathe in and it slows down as you breathe out. And you'll be able to actually feel that if you were to focus on your heart. You would be able to feel that massive variability in the two extremes here. As you breathe in, the heart rate speeds up. As you breathe out, the heart rate slows down. And you'll be able to feel it. If you were to put on a blood pressure cuff that had an audio signal, you would hear it as the beats get faster and then get slower as you breathe in and out. So this is the heart rate variability piece that was missing until about 1985. 85, 86, 87, they started to see this because they had machines now. They had electrocardiograms that were connected to computers that were running Fourier analyses on the actual rhythm. And that's when they began to see all this stuff that's sort of hidden behind the scenes. And that's what opened up this whole idea of psychophysiological coherence. So we can now take this model and go look at hypnosis and meditation in a new light. We've always known that people who meditate have lower metabolic functions. And we know that their breathing slows down and that their heart rate slows down and that their brain waves enter an alpha state, typically. Okay? But we've never understood how that occurred. It was always just sort of this magical thing that happened. The original meditative directions from the Buddha were go find a quiet place next to a river under a tree, sit, and do nothing. Okay? Literally do nothing. And see what happens. Well, of course, if you can do that for 7 years, pretty soon you're going to enter into this psychophysiological coherent state. just by accident, that's going to happen. But of course, he realized that this was, not necessarily everybody could do that. So he also developed, and they developed, the tradition developed, mantra meditation, where they would actually sing or hum, in the case of Om, which is just a humming, a phrase or a small word that would lead to the same thing because it drops the breathing rate down to 3 breaths a minute. So humming is the natural way of doing this. If you hum to anything, any kind of a tone, what will happen is if you do it for about 3 minutes, you'll start to enter this physiologically coherent state. Because it'll slow the breathing down, and the other 2 cycles, the other 2 rhythms, are directly linked to the breathing pattern. As it drops below 6 breaths a minute, you start to get this reduction, and as it moves into 3 breaths a minute, bingo, it kicks into this psychophysiologically coherent state. Then what happens is there's a further refinement of the coherence, and that is when the breath has a ratio of 15 seconds exhalation and 5 seconds inhalation, a 3-to-1 ratio. Because what that's doing is rebalancing the autonomic nervous system. As we breathe out, that is the parasympathetic nervous system, the part of the nervous system that controls relaxation. That's why when we breathe out, the heart rate slows down. because there's a lot of parasympathetic activity going on. And so it literally inhibits the heart rate. If there were no parasympathetic input into the heart rhythm, the normal heart rate, the normal resting heart rate would be between 120 and 130 beats a minute. It's only because the parasympathetic side of the system inhibits that from happening that it stays right around 70. So what we're doing is, by breathing out slowly over 15 seconds, we are allowing that parasympathetic nervous system impulse time to begin to act on the heart and the other parts of the metabolism, the other parts of the body. And so it rebalances. In the 20 minutes that we're doing this, it completely rebalances the avatar, and so we're much healthier. This is where all the health benefits are coming from. It's from this state of psychophysiological coherence. We've now been able to trace that back. In 71, when Benson and his colleagues published the research in Scientific American on what is going on here, reduced breath rate, reduced oxygen consumption, reduced carbon dioxide output, lower metabolism, lower heart rate, blah, blah, blah. They did not have heart rate variability. They had no clue that this was going on behind the scenes. All they were doing was just describing really, very overt behaviors that were going on in front of them in the laboratory. But after 1985, now we can go back and take a look at that research and say, this is what is going on. And that's why you get all the benefits: reduction in blood pressure, reduction in heart attacks, reduction in cholesterol production, reduction in insomnia, reduction in all of these things, because the psychophysiological coherent state rebalances the avatar itself and allows it to lead a healthier existence. Basically, what happens if we don't do this is that it's like driving our cars at 190 miles an hour with the brakes on. Okay, we're going to burn it out because it's too much sympathetic nervous system input to the entire process. This allows more parasympathetic input to get back out there and slow things down and rebalance everything. Okay? Yeah.
I see this as applying to the parent-child relationship.
Yes.
Why do we tell our children to go take time out?
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
This is exactly why. This is it.
We want them to slow down,
Slow down.
think about it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, and not be, driven by the sympathetic activity of the nervous system itself. And to,
It would be
take it.
interesting to see what all the other cultures in the world do about their children.
Right, that would be, yeah, and they're pretty similar. I mean, because remember, they face the same situations that we do, except in the more primitive, with big quotes around it, primitive cultures, of which there are very few left. But they, of course, would not have television and video games and things like that to contend with. But they'd still have the same kinds of normal cycles of childhood development. So yeah, that would be very interesting. Okay, enough on that? Okay, meditative absorptions. The Buddha defined 8 of these meditative absorptions, which is distancing, literally distancing the spirit, the soul, the consciousness which we are from this, the extended world. So the first level is just, a sort of distancing where where we feel happy and we feel content and we have the psychophysiological coherent state. We're happy, we're relaxed, we're comfortable, and we're not thinking about anything going on around us in the real world, not the external world out there. Then as we move further and further and further away from that, the consciousness which we are becomes more and more apparent because we're getting further away from any extended elements of reality. And so finally we are at the 8th level, the 8th absorption, okay, where we will reunite with the source of all being. Okay, remember that this is, for those of you in the history of philosophy class, this is the old Agdawadic tradition coming to us from the ancient mystery religions, and we see it most clearly defined in the Gnostic tradition, okay, where their cosmology says that we, the consciousness which we are, the soul, the spirit, actually is a denizen, a citizen of this supernal realm, this transmundane realm out there, And we were literally snatched out of our home and forcibly thrown into this prison of matter. Okay? So this is the Mandaean interpretation. This is a Coptic interpretation of this whole idea. And because we are thrown through the ancient astrotheological conception of the world and the heavens, was that there were 7 planets and the earth. And so what happened was we were thrown from this transmundane world of, of perfect perfection. We were snatched out of there by these, they call them archons, these insane demigods who were jealous of everything. So they just basically snatched us out of there, threw us through these 7 realms. Each level we accumulated more and more matter. Each level we accumulated more and more emotional kinds of stuff. And finally we're locked, thrown down onto this planet here, where we now are encased literally in physical shells of material that make us forget who we are and basically go through life in a coma. Okay, never remembering who we are. And so the Agawada tradition, which is why we have 8, is that there are 7 levels we have to then strip away through the meditative practice in order to get back to that supernal realm where we actually belong. So that's why there are 8. There are other systems which have 9, other systems which have 7, other systems which have 4, other systems which have 3. But this is the ancient Agawada tradition, Octo 8. Okay, and that's what the meditative absorptions are descriptions of. As we meditate and get more and more competent at our meditative technique, we will continue to get further and further and further away from material things and closer and closer and closer to that divine realm, where we actually belong. We do not belong in this prison of matter. This is a cruel cosmic joke, according to the Mandaeans, perpetrated by the archons. And as soon as all of us realize that we're in this prison, and all we have to do is just sort of turn around and walk back home, as soon as all of us walk back home, this place will simply vanish, never to be seen again. And we'll all live happily ever after in the divine realm, okay? Dualist interactionism is the newest model that we have available to us, that this consciousness which we are, the soul, the spirit, is in fact a quantum phenomenon, possibly a quantum wave phenomenon, we really don't know. But it doesn't have any matter, it doesn't have any spatial location, it's not temporal, it's non-temporal, non-local, non-spatial, non-material, but still has an impact on the material world. And this is allowing an experimental model that will allow us to confirm and validate whether this hypothesis is correct, because it's testable. Okay, so basically Dr. John C. Eccles is the one who developed this quantum wave phenomenon, which we are, the spirit, the consciousness which we are, interacts with the avatar through the supplemental motor area up here at the very top of the brain, literally reads off all of the data that's coming into the nervous system of the avatar, so that's where we get all this data from, and then puts information into the avatar through that so that we can move around and talk and do whatever else we want to do. Okay, so that's the newest model that we have available to us of the way these two substances seem to interact. Okay, your avatar, this is your avatar. The avatar is the physical vehicle for a divine being. Okay, on the Mandaean, on all of these models from the ancients, we are divine. The substance, the thinking substance which we are, is divine. And the only reason that it is here is because of either an accident, or because it's a training ground, or because from the ancient Jewish kinds of ideas, we're here for punishment. We need to be punished. We need to be tortured until we learn our lesson, basically. So that's why we're here. But we ourselves are divine, and once we recognize that, we can go back home. So avatar is an ancient Sanskrit term, and it literally means descent. So it is the vehicle for the descent of a divine being into material existence. And this is what they always point to when they say that's an avatar of, whoever. Jesus, of course, being the most familiar avatar that we have in the Western world. Jesus being, in fact, the primary avatar of the entire Christian tradition and the Gnostic tradition, the Gnostic Christian tradition. So what this particular idea is telling us is the same thing. You know, we have a physical organism here, but it is only an avatar. It's not us. We're not the body. We have really nothing to do with it except for the fact that we're connected to it in some way. It is ours. It's no one else's. We're the only one who has access to its inputs and outputs. Okay? And so, you know, this is the avatar. We are not the avatar. The avatar is a completely independent, totally separate, follows different rules, has different, you know, ways of doing things. Now, the concept here, the dualist interactionism in the avatar, is important because it resolves a number of difficulties. Not the least of which is the explanation of unconsciousness. The consciousness that we are does not have access to all the processes that this avatar has. This thing is a machine, a bioelectrical, biomechanical, biochemical machine composed of 30 trillion moving parts. Okay? We have no access to that. None whatsoever. We cannot individually feel the 30 trillion moving parts. We can't do that. We have no access to the way that it walks, the way that it talks, the way that it develops, the way that it heals wounds, the way that it learns language. We have no access to any of that. The thinking substance which we are doesn't control any of those processes. We can't do any of that. We, you know, except for the skeletal muscles, that's the only thing we have direct access to. Everything else is unconscious, that is not available to us. However, it's obviously available to the avatar because it has its own consciousness, it has its own way of doing things, it has its own programming, and it knows what's going on in the material world. So what we get is the high-level, sort of abstracted model of everything that's going on in the real world out there, you know, the extended world out there, which the avatar is involved with, and which it then encodes and we read off at the top up here. Okay? So the only way we're able to do hypnosis and meditation and go through the absorptions and do all of that kind of stuff is because we are completely independent of this thing. Okay? If we were not, if what we were was this thing, none of this would be possible. None of it. Okay? So that's the concept of the avatar. And again, a very ancient concept, updated a little bit. We've just gone through the Buddhist and Gnostic soteriology. The cemetery contemplations were the first of the Buddhist meditation cycle in order to recognize that we must, absolutely have to practice meditation. The student would be requested to go out to the cemetery plains for 30 days and 30 nights, stay there for a month, and just watch as all of the bodies decompose. So they would smell them, they would see them, they would walk around, they would touch them, they would feel them, they could see the animals eating them, the birds, the raccoons, you know, the foxes, the wolves, whatever came along. Old people, young people, babies, dogs, cats, everything was there on the cemetery plains. And so for 30 days and 30 nights, they were immersed in death, decay, stench. You know, they could see the actual organs. In some of them, if they were at that stage of decay, they could see the skeleton, they could see the, you know, they could see the whole process as the body bloated and then exploded, you know. Okay, so basically it convinced them, first of all, that no matter what else is true in this particular existence, this thing is going to decay and die. That is a fact, okay? And so this brought that home very forcefully. And so that provided sort of a negative stimulus, you know, to go practice the meditation because it's very difficult to practice meditation. I'd, you know, much rather be, you know, watching a ball game or playing racquetball or doing all these other things. But because I know from my cemetery contemplations that this thing is going to die, I'd better practice a little meditation along the way. Because that will get me safe. That will demonstrate to me and perfect my skills in detaching from the avatar. So that when it finally does come time for the avatar to return to the elements from which it was created, I won't be there. I will be here. Okay? You will be there. Okay? And that's why the cemetery contemplations were developed, because they were very useful as an educational tool. Here in the Western world, we have tried to sort of sanitize the death and everything else. We don't really see things until they've been prettified. You know, the mortician will take the body and they'll put makeup on it and they'll clothe and they'll do all of those things. But we don't actually see it as it decays. We don't actually see the person that we love, you know, the avatar of the person that we love, physically decaying and returning to the dust from which it was created. Okay, so we're sort of missing that. However, in exchange for the lack of an actual physical body, we have all of these wonderful movies and television programs filled with blood and gore and violence and destruction that we can actually watch and say, okay, this is what it would be like, you know. If this were real, I can, you know, use my imagination and say, okay, that's what it would be like to die from a gunshot, or, you know, having my head chopped off, or, you know, killed by a serial killer or whatever. So we have those in place of the cemetery contemplations. We can utilize that to provide the emotional stimulus to go practice. Yeah.
And what happens to thinking substances that have difficulty detaching?
Well, if you have difficulty detaching, then you will actually, it is possible to experience the decay of the body, the decay of the avatar. Not that it would hurt us, but we would just experience it. We would feel it as it decayed. Okay? Now, in the near-death experience anecdotes, and I want you to be extremely skeptical of every near-death experience or out-of-body experience report. Be really skeptical about every one of them. Okay? Do not accept them at face value, and do not assume that they are reporting a real event. Because there's no data that we can use to confirm that. The meditative practice will provide you direct experience of the event and of the ability to detach. Anecdotal evidence from near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences must be met with a large degree of skepticism. However, if you go out and take a look at the stuff that's been done and that's been published out there, almost all of them are wonderful. Oh, I was so happy. Oh, I saw everybody I loved before. Oh, there was this wonderful light. Oh, everything is peaceful and happy and content and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And that's what most of them do report. Okay? However, there's about 10 or 15% of them that are never reported. Well, not never, but never reported in the mainstream. And those report feelings of claustrophobia and suffocation, of decay, of death, of fear, of terror. Okay? And that's what they're describing. They are describing the actual avatar's experience of whatever it was that was happening as this near-death experience occurred. Okay? Again, we need to take total control as much as we can over the consciousness that we are. All of these traditions are directed towards that single goal. There's no other goal here. And all of the, you know, the soteriology, all of the cosmologies, all of the myths, all of the fables, all of the stories are intended simply to remind us of how to do it and that we need to do it. Okay? Yeah.
So is that why some people seem to just slip away and others struggle? Because
Oh, yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah, some people will actually, yeah, they will struggle.
Yeah, and like my mom she was asleep and then she stopped.
Yeah, and then it just ended. Yeah, exactly.
So,
whereas other people actually go through the death struggle. Yeah, and so, you know, that could be because they're just, you know,
So
experiencing
this
that.
is how you prepare. Not
What's
to
that?
do.
Yeah, well, this is how you prepare so that it's easy. It's an easier
So the
transition.
is
Yeah.
easier.
Remember, we're not the avatar. The avatar is this marvelous, you know, obviously highly complex, living biological machine thing that is ours and ours alone, through which we can come and learn all of these things, through which we can come and interact with each other, through which we can come and make decisions, through which we can come and learn how to be gods, basically, is what the ancients are talking about. Okay? Because if we have an evolutionary trajectory, and we can get back to the divine realm, we will take with us a whole bunch of information, a whole bunch of experiences. that will be very useful for us. Okay? The Mandaean interpretation of the Garden of Eden story is just exactly that. The Gnostic interpretation is that. We're here to learn the difference between good and evil. And so this place was specifically designed to have bunches and bunches and bunches of evil, so that we could learn the difference by sort of rubbing our nose in it. Okay? And then so we could stand up and make decisions, make choices about whether we were going to follow evil or good. Okay? And in so doing, we then begin to evolve. And that could not be done in the divine realm. In the divine realm, that would be impossible. Only in a realm like this, according to the Gnostic interpretation, could we have that particular experience. And so there is no evolution in heaven. There's only evolution here, with the interaction between spirit and matter. Other points? Yeah.
Why did you say some people struggle?
Oh, because they're not ready to give it up yet.
Oh,
Yeah, they're literally holding on to the avatar, even through its death struggle. Okay, which is fine. That's okay. I'll struggle. There's nothing wrong with struggling. Okay, but it is going to be from the inside. It is going to be difficult, and it's going to be painful, and it's going to be scary, and it's going to be all of those things, which again is not a bad thing. That's okay. We can handle all of that. But if we know where we're going, and if we practiced it, like Socrates said, I'm not afraid to drink the hemlock because I've been there so many times I know it like the streets of Athens. I know what's coming next. And as soon as my avatar has ceased to function, I will be free. Okay? And so they all, we're talking about freedom because the avatar itself constrains us into a specific space-time location, into a specific epoch, into a specific family, into a specific culture. Okay? And so that constrains our freedom, which is theoretically unlimited. It constrains it by all of these, things that are material. Okay? So when the avatar is finally ceases functioning and the link is broken, we're now free again. We're off into the realm of freedom, total freedom. And this is what Hegel was talking about. The essence of spirit is freedom. Okay? And so, same thing we're talking about here. The Buddha would talk about the same thing, liberation. And then we can choose to come back if we like, or we can choose to hang out there if we like, or we can choose to head off to the eighth absorption and hang out in heaven if we like. We're free again to do what we want. Not compelled, not, to use the Gnostic version again, the archons, these insane demigods, are waiting for us. So as soon as the avatar dies of this one and we're free for a half a second, they reach down, snatch us, and throw us back in. So we never have a chance to recover, and we're always locked in this endless sleep. So, that's the sort of idea that they have. We need to, the archons themselves do not have any authority over us if we wake up and recognize that we are gods. We can just basically tell them to take a hike. Okay, but if we don't know that, if we've forgotten who we are, then they have this ability to come in and snatch us and throw us back in. And so for centuries, for millennia, for lifetime after lifetime, we are constantly tormented for their pleasure in this world of suffering, and we forget who we are. Okay, so that's the Mandaean Gnostic interpretation of this whole thing.
Is that similar to reincarnation?
Yes, exactly. Over and over and over again. A continuous cycle of rebirth in a place of suffering and pain. Until we finally wake up and realize who we are.